The vast expanse of space stretched endlessly before the UES stellar horizon, humanity's most advanced deep space exploration vessel. Captain Maya Rodriguez stood at the helm, her weathered hands resting lightly on the holographic control interface as she studied the mysterious readings that had drawn their attention to this remote sector of space. "Dr. Patel, what do you make of these energy signatures?" she asked, addressing her chief science officer, who was absorbed in analyzing the strange data patterns flowing across his station's displays. "Fascinating, Captain," Dr. Patel replied, his dark eyes reflecting the shimmer of holographic data. "These energy patterns suggest incredibly advanced technology, but they're unlike anything we've encountered in our database. Whatever's out there, it's big, and it's definitely not natural." The bridge crew worked in focused silence, each member acutely aware that they might be on the verge of humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization. After decades of exploring the stars, finding only remnants of long-dead civilizations and primitive microbial life, this could be the moment everything changed. "Captain," called out Lieutenant Sarah Chen from the sensor station, her voice tight with controlled excitement. Multiple objects emerging from hyperspace directly ahead. Size estimates are massive. The crew watched in awe as space itself seemed to ripple and tear, disgorging a fleet of ships that dwarfed the stellar horizon. Their design was unlike anything human eyes had ever seen. Crystalline structures that seemed to flow and shift, catching and refracting the light of distant stars in hypnotic patterns. "First contact protocols," Captain Rodriguez announced calmly, though her heart raced with anticipation. "Open all standard greeting frequencies and have the universal translators ready." Before they could broadcast their greeting, a beam of energy lanced out from the lead alien vessel, enveloping the stellar horizon in a web of shimmering light. The crew tensed, but their sensors showed no hostile intent. It appeared to be some kind of scanning beam. A voice boomed through their communication system, speaking in a language that seemed to consist of crystalline chimes and harmonic resonances. The universal translators worked furiously for several seconds before rendering it into English. "Unknown vessel, you have entered the sovereign territory of the Xindari Ascendancy. Your technological level has been assessed and found wanting. Prepare to be boarded and evaluated for potential client species status." Captain Rodriguez's lips curved into a slight smile. The aliens' arrogant assumption of superiority was something humanity had long anticipated in their first contact scenarios. They had prepared accordingly. "This is Captain Maya Rodriguez of the United Earth ship Stellar Horizon," she responded, her voice steady and confident. "We greet the Xindari Ascendancy in peace and look forward to diplomatic relations between our peoples. However, I must decline your request to board our vessel." There was a pause, then the alien voice returned, tinged with what seemed like amusement. "You misunderstand, primitive ones. This is not a request. The Xindari Ascendancy does not negotiate with lesser species. Your vessel's defensive capabilities have been analyzed. You have no means to resist." Dr. Patel looked up from his station, giving the captain a subtle nod. The alien scanning beam had worked exactly as their scientists had predicted it would, seeing only what they wanted it to see. "Perhaps," Rodriguez replied, allowing a hint of amusement to enter her own voice. "The Xindari Ascendancy should scan again, more thoroughly this time." She gestured to Lieutenant Chen, who activated a sequence that had been waiting for just such an occasion. The stellar horizon's true nature began to reveal itself as layer after layer of advanced stealth technology deactivated. The small exploration vessel's energy signature suddenly swelled to rival that of the alien fleet. The Xindari ships immediately shifted into defensive formations, their weapons charging. But before they could act, hundreds of small objects detached from the stellar horizon's hull, quickly surrounding the alien fleet in a three-dimensional grid pattern. "What you initially scanned," Rodriguez explained, "was merely our ship's public face. These devices now surrounding your fleet are what we call Newton's cradles, quantum-linked gravitational manipulators, With a single command, they can redirect the kinetic energy of your weapon's fire back to its source, multiplied several thousand times. The alien command channel was silent for several long moments. When the response came, the tone had shifted from condescension to cautious respect. Your deception was impressive. Perhaps we were hasty in our assessment of your species' capabilities. Rodriguez smiled. Not deception, merely prudence. Humanity learned long ago that it's wise to keep a few cards close to the chest, as we say. Now, shall we discuss diplomatic relations as equals? The next several hours were spent in careful negotiation as the humans and Sindari began the delicate process of establishing formal diplomatic contact. The aliens were particularly interested in how humanity had developed such advanced technology while remaining undetected by their long-range surveys. Our species learned early on, Rodriguez explained during one exchange, that broadcasting our presence across the cosmos might not be wise. We developed in secret, preparing for the day we would meet other spacefaring civilizations. We hoped for peace but prepared for any possibility. As the initial tensions eased, the Sindari revealed more about their civilization, a species that had evolved from crystalline life forms, developing technology that merged the organic and inorganic in ways humans had only theorized about. Their arrogance, it seemed, stemmed from countless encounters with less advanced species who viewed their technology as almost magical. Your species is unusual, the Sindari commander admitted. Most races we encounter either cower in fear or attack in desperation. You showed neither fear nor aggression, despite our provocative approach. Humanity has had a long time to consider first contact scenarios, Rodriguez replied. We decided the best approach was to demonstrate strength through restraint and superiority through mercy. As the first day of contact drew to a close, both sides had begun to develop a grudging respect for each other. The Sindari's initial dismissal of humanity had been replaced by genuine curiosity, while the humans found themselves fascinated by the aliens' unique perspective on life and technology. But as Captain Rodriguez retired to her quarters that evening, she knew this was just the beginning. The Sindari would undoubtedly test humanity's capabilities further, and their response to finding equals instead of servants suggested there might be more challenges ahead. Captain's log, supplemental, she recorded. First contact with the Sindari ascendancy has been established. While initial interactions were tense, we've managed to establish a dialogue. However, their reaction to finding an advanced civilization in what they consider their territory suggests we should remain cautious. The real test of our species' compatibility may still lie ahead. The stellar horizon maintained its position relative to the Sindari fleet, its quantum gravitational grid still active but powered down to minimal levels, a reminder rather than a threat. As the ship's night cycle began, the crew prepared for what promised to be an interesting tomorrow. Humanity's first steps into the galactic community had been taken, and they had managed to do it without firing a shot. But experience had taught them that peace was often harder to maintain than achieve, and the real work was just beginning. The crystalline spires of the Sindari flagship glittered against the backdrop of space as Captain Rodriguez and a small delegation from the stellar horizon prepared to board. After 12 hours of tense negotiation, the Sindari had issued what they called a proving, a series of challenges to test humanity's worthiness as equals in the galactic community. Remember, Rodriguez addressed her team as they stood in the transport bay. They're expecting us to fail. That's their advantage, and their weakness. Dr. Patel and Lieutenant Chen nodded, understanding the subtle strategy at play. The fourth member of their team, Engineering Chief Marcus Wong, gave a confident grin as he checked his equipment one final time. The transport beam enveloped them in a cascade of crystalline light, and moments later they materialized in what appeared to be a vast chamber aboard the Sindari vessel. The walls pulsed with living light, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with suspended crystalline particles. High Commander Vextree of the Sindari Ascendancy stood waiting, his crystalline form towering over the human delegation. Unlike organic species, the Tsundere had evolved from silicon-based life, their bodies a complex matrix of living crystal that could shift and reconfigure at will. Welcome aboard the Eternal Resonance. Vextree's harmonic voice reverberated through the chamber. We have prepared 3 trials to evaluate your species' capabilities. Success will grant you recognition as equals. Failure will result in your classification as a protectorate species under Tsundere guidance. Rodriguez stepped forward, her posture relaxed but dignified. And if we exceed your expectations, a ripple of what might have been amusement passed through Vextree's crystalline form. That would be unprecedented. The first challenge took place in what the Tsundere called their resonance chamber, a vast spherical room filled with floating crystalline nodes. The task seemed simple: navigate through the chamber to reach a specific frequency node while avoiding destructive harmonic interference patterns. Your primitive organic senses will find this quite impossible, Vextree explained with evident satisfaction. Even our youngest can barely manage it without years of training. Dr. Paddle stepped forward, pulling out what appeared to be a simple handheld device. Interesting. May I scan the chamber's harmonic patterns before we begin? The Tsundere agreed, clearly not expecting much from the simple-looking human technology. But as Paddle's device mapped the complex web of resonances, a slight smile played across his face. He turned to Chief Wong, who was already pulling components from his kit. The patterns are complex, Paddle explained to Rodriguez, but they're not random. There's a mathematical progression underlying the chaos. Within minutes, Wong had assembled what looked like a crude instrument from their equipment, a combination of quantum sensors and harmonic emitters. The Tsundere observers watched with barely concealed disdain at what appeared to be primitive tinkering. But when Wong activated the device, something remarkable happened. The chaotic harmonics in the chamber began to align, creating clear pathways through the interference patterns. Lieutenant Chen, who had been quietly analyzing the data, stepped forward and began to walk confidently through the chamber, the device creating a bubble of stable resonance around her. Impossible, one of the Tsundere scientists exclaimed, their crystalline form flickering with agitation. The harmonics cannot be predicted with such precision. On the contrary, Paddle replied calmly, they follow a perfect Fibonacci sequence when mapped in 11-dimensional space. Once we understood that, it was simply a matter of calculating the interference patterns and generating a countering frequency. The second challenge involved solving a series of quantum encryption protocols that the Tsundere used to secure their most sensitive data. They allowed the humans access to a testing system, expecting them to spend hours or even days attempting to crack even the simplest codes. Instead, Lieutenant Chen sat down at the interface and began typing with practiced ease. The Tsundere watched in growing astonishment as she methodically dismantled their encryption protocols one after another. Your encryption is elegant, Chen commented as she worked, but it relies too heavily on quantum entanglement patterns that can be predicted if you understand the underlying mathematical principles. We encountered similar challenges when developing our own quantum communications networks. The final challenge was perhaps the most dramatic. The Tsundere presented what they called an impossible energy equation, a theoretical problem involving the stabilization of a microscopic artificial singularity. It was a test they used to evaluate species' understanding of fundamental physics, and none had ever solved it. Dr. Paddle studied the equation for several minutes, then began to laugh softly. Captain, he said, turning to Rodriguez, they've independently discovered the Chen-Martin's paradox. Ah, Rodriguez replied with a knowing smile. Would you like to show them the solution, or should we let them keep thinking it's impossible? The Tsundere representatives bristled at this exchange, their crystalline forms emanating patterns of disbelief and irritation. This equation has stumped our greatest minds for centuries, Vextree declared. You cannot possibly. But Paddle was already writing out the solution, using a combination of standard mathematical notation and what appeared to be entirely new symbolic logic. As he worked, The Xindari scientists gathered around, their initial skepticism giving way to growing amazement. "You see," Paddle explained as he wrote, "the problem isn't impossible. You're just trying to solve it in the wrong number of dimensions. If you account for the quantum foam fluctuations in the 11th dimension and apply the Henderson principle of universal symmetry." The chamber fell silent as the Xindari processed what they were seeing. The solution was elegant, comprehensive, and utterly revolutionary to their understanding of physics. This changes everything," one of the Xindari scientists whispered, their voice a chorus of stunned harmonics. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward. "Perhaps now we can move beyond these tests and begin real diplomatic relations. Humanity has much to share with the Xindari ascendancy, just as we have much to learn from you. But we can only do so as equals, as partners in exploration and discovery." Vextree's crystalline form shifted through a complex series of patterns before settling into what the humans had learned to recognize as a formal diplomatic configuration. "Captain Rodriguez, your species has not merely passed our trials, you have transformed them. The Xindari ascendancy acknowledges humanity as equals, and..." There was a pause, followed by what might have been the Xindari equivalent of a chuckle, perhaps in some areas, "our superiors." As the human delegation prepared to return to the stellar horizon, Rodriguez couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. They had achieved their goal not through force or intimidation, but through humanity's greatest strengths: innovation, adaptability, and the ability to see solutions where others saw only impossibilities. "Captain's log, supplemental," she recorded later. "The Xindari challenges have been met and exceeded. More importantly, we've begun to break down their preconceptions about younger species. The real work of building a lasting relationship between our civilizations can now begin. And perhaps, just perhaps, we've helped them understand that age and technological advancement don't always correlate with wisdom or capability." The sudden alarm pierced through the diplomatic discussions aboard the stellar horizon, causing both humans and Xindari to pause mid-conversation. Lieutenant Chen's fingers flew across her console as she analyzed the incoming data. "Captain, massive gravitational disturbance detected at the edge of the system," she reported, her voice tense. "It's unlike anything in our records." The holographic display at the center of the bridge sparked to life, showing a swirling vortex of energy that seemed to bend the very fabric of space around it. Dr. Patel moved to his station, his expression growing increasingly concerned as he studied the readings. "It appears to be some kind of quantum singularity," he announced, "but the energy signature is all wrong. It's growing." High Commander Vextree's crystalline form shifted in what the humans had learned to recognize as alarm. "Impossible. This sector has been stable for millennia." The Xindari leader turned to his own science officers, their crystalline bodies resonating in rapid communication. Captain Rodriguez watched the anomaly's expansion with growing concern. "Dr. Patel, what are we looking at in terms of threat level?" Before he could answer, the space around them seemed to shudder. Both ships' sensors screamed warnings as the gravitational wave hit them, distorting their protective fields and sending ripples of stress through their hulls. "The anomaly is generating quantum-level distortions," Paddle explained, his fingers dancing across his console. "It's affecting the fundamental forces holding matter together. At this rate, both our ships will begin to experience molecular degradation within hours." The Xindari vessels attempted to move away from the phenomenon, their crystalline drives pulsing with energy. But the gravitational pull was too strong, drawing them inexorably closer to the swirling vortex. "Our conventional drives are useless," Vextree announced, a note of resignation in his harmonic voice. "The gravitational forces are too powerful." Rodriguez shared a quick look with her senior staff. They had hoped to keep certain technologies secret for longer, but circumstances had forced their hand. "Commander Vextree, we may have a solution, but we'll need your trust and cooperation." The Xindari leader's form sparkled with interest. "You have already proven your species' capabilities exceed our initial assumptions. What do you propose?" "Chief Wong," Rodriguez called out, "Initialize the quantum anchor system." Wang nodded, entering a complex sequence into his engineering station. Panels began sliding open along the stellar horizon's hull, revealing devices that had remained hidden until now. They resembled crystalline structures themselves, but with an organic fluidity that even the Xindari found fascinating. "These are quantum anchors," Wang explained to their alien guests. "They create localized pockets of stable spacetime by manipulating quantum fields at a fundamental level. We developed them for exploring black holes, but they should work here." The Xindari scientists crowded around the human consoles, their crystalline forms vibrating with barely contained excitement as they studied the technology. "The theoretical principles behind this," one of them began, their voice a chorus of amazed harmonics. "We considered it impossible." "Humanity has a habit of achieving the impossible," Rodriguez replied with a slight smile. "But we'll need your help. Your crystalline technology has properties that could enhance the anchor's effect. If we can synchronize our systems." Understanding flickered through Vextree's form. Without hesitation, he turned to his officers and began issuing commands. Within minutes, the Xindari ships had moved into formation around the stellar horizon, their crystalline hulls resonating in harmony with the quantum anchors. Dr. Patel worked frantically with the Xindari scientists, integrating their crystalline resonance technology with the quantum anchor system. The integration was delicate work. One miscalculation could tear both ships apart at the quantum level. "Ready, Captain," Patel announced finally. "The Xindari resonance fields are synchronized with our quantum anchors. We can create a stable bubble of space-time around both fleets." "And the anomaly itself?" Rodriguez asked. "Once we're stable, we might be able to analyze it properly. There's something about its structure that doesn't seem natural." Rodriguez nodded. "Proceed." The quantum anchors activated, their energy combining with the Xindari's crystalline resonance in ways neither species had imagined possible. A sphere of stable space-time formed around the ships, pushing back against the gravitational distortions. As the immediate danger passed, both human and Xindari scientists turned their attention to the anomaly itself. What they discovered shocked both species. "Captain," Patel called out, his voice filled with wonder. "The anomaly. It's artificial. We're detecting patterns in the quantum fluctuations that could only have been created deliberately." Vextree's form shifted in surprise. "A weapon?" "No," Patel replied, studying the data. "More like a message. The quantum fluctuations are encoding information. Someone or something created this as a way of communicating across vast distances of space." The next several hours were spent in intense collaboration as humans and Xindari worked together to decode the message. Their different approaches to science and technology proved complementary, human intuition and creativity combining with Xindari precision and experience. "It's a warning," Chen announced finally, looking up from her station. "And an invitation. There's something coming, something that threatens all spacefaring civilizations. The message contains coordinates for a meeting of species who wish to face this threat together." A heavy silence fell over the bridge as both humans and Xindari processed this information. It was Vextree who finally spoke, his crystalline form glowing with a new intensity. "Perhaps this is why our paths have crossed," he said. "Neither of our species could have solved this alone. The Xindari's experience and crystalline technology, combined with humanity's innovation and quantum engineering." He turned to Rodriguez. "We have much to learn from each other, it seems." Rodriguez nodded in agreement. "And perhaps that's the real message here. The universe is larger and more complex than either of our species imagined. We're stronger together than apart." As the anomaly finally began to dissipate, its message delivered, both human and Xindari crews began the process of documenting everything they'd learned. The crisis had forced them to share technologies and knowledge they might have kept secret for decades, but it had also forged something more valuable: trust. Captain's log, supplemental, Rodriguez recorded later. What started as a first contact situation has evolved into something far more significant. We've not only gained allies in the Tsundere, but we may have stumbled upon a mystery that will reshape our understanding of the galaxy. The coordinates we received point to a location far beyond known space. Whatever awaits us there, I'm glad we'll face it with our new allies at our side. The observation deck of the stellar horizon had been transformed. Crystalline structures gifted by the Tsundere merged seamlessly with human technology, creating an environment where both species could comfortably coexist. Captain Rodriguez watched as Dr. Puddle engaged in what looked like an elaborate dance with 3 Tsundere scientists, their crystalline forms shifting in response to his movements as they exchanged complex mathematical concepts through a combination of gesture and resonance. Fascinating, isn't it? Lieutenant Chen remarked, joining her captain at the viewport. They think in perfect geometric patterns. When they solve equations, they literally become the mathematics. The past week had brought unprecedented exchanges between the two species as they prepared for their journey to the mysterious coordinates. The Tsundere had been particularly intrigued by humanity's approach to quantum mechanics, while the humans found themselves captivated by the organic crystalline technology that the Tsundere had evolved alongside. High Commander, Rodriguez called out as Vextree entered the chamber. I believe your engineers have finished their analysis of our quantum drive systems. The crystalline being's form rippled with what they'd learned to recognize as excitement. Indeed, Captain. We find ourselves humbled. Your species approached faster than light travel from an entirely different paradigm than ours. While we focused on manipulating space itself, you found ways to slip between its very fabric. Chief Wong emerged from an access tunnel, his uniform covered in crystalline dust. The integration is proceeding faster than expected, he reported. The Tsundere crystalline matrices actually enhance our quantum field generators by an order of magnitude. We never imagined they could be so compatible. The discoveries weren't limited to technology. Cultural exchange officers from both ships had been working around the clock to understand each other's societies. The humans were fascinated by the Tsundere's living architecture, cities that grew and evolved with their inhabitants. The Tsundere, in turn, found themselves drawn to human art, particularly music, which resonated with their crystalline forms in unexpected ways. Your species creates harmony from chaos, a Tsundere cultural attaché observed during one exchange. We thought ourselves masters of resonance, yet you understand it on an intuitive level we never considered. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Cultural misunderstandings arose frequently, requiring patience and dedication to overcome. The Tsundere struggled with human emotions, finding them chaotic and unpredictable. Humans, meanwhile, had to adjust to the Tsundere's literal interpretation of everything. The concept of metaphor was entirely foreign to them. A critical moment came during a joint training exercise when a human crew member's joke about breaking the ice sent the Tsundere into a panic, thinking they were about to shatter. The incident led to the creation of a comprehensive database of human idioms and their literal meanings, which became an essential tool for interspecies communication. As the preparations for their joint mission continued, both species found themselves reevaluating their place in the universe. The Tsundere's rigid hierarchy began to show signs of flexibility, while humanity's tendency toward chaos gained new appreciation for structure and precision. We've received the latest data analysis from the anomaly, Dr. Patil announced during a joint briefing. The coordinates point to a region of space that both our species have avoided due to unusual quantum fluctuations. We always assumed it was a natural phenomenon. As did we. A Tsundere scientist chimed in, their form oscillating thoughtfully. Perhaps we were meant to stay away until we were ready, until we could work together. The implications weren't lost on anyone. Two species, so different in their approach to existence, had found strength in their differences. The mysterious message hadn't just warned them of a coming threat. It had guided them toward the cooperation they would need to face it. The modifications to both fleets will be complete within 48 hours, Wong reported. The integration of secondary crystalline technology with our quantum systems has created something entirely new. We're calling it the resonant quantum drive. Rodriguez nodded, studying the holographic projections that showed their planned route and the survival protocols. We're heading into completely unknown territory. We've developed hybrid shields, Chen explained. Secondary crystalline matrices channeling human quantum field technology. In theory, they should protect us from any spatial anomalies we encounter. As the briefing concluded, Rodriguez found herself in conversation with Vextree, both leaders watching their crews work together with growing confidence. When we first encountered your ship, Vextree admitted, we thought we had found another primitive species to guide. Instead, we found equals who could teach us as much as we could teach them. The universe has a way of surprising us, Rodriguez replied. Perhaps that's the greatest lesson we've learned. No matter how advanced we become, there's always more to discover, especially about each other. The Stellar Horizons observation deck had become a symbol of their cooperation. Human and secondary technology working in harmony, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. As both species prepared for their journey into the unknown, they carried with them the knowledge that they had already achieved something remarkable. True understanding between two fundamentally different forms of life. Captain's log final entry before departure, Rodriguez recorded that evening. Tomorrow we venture into unknown space, chasing a message that could change the fate of all spacefaring civilizations. We go not as separate species, but as partners, our differences becoming our greatest strength. Whatever awaits us at those coordinates, we face it together. Humanity and secondary, quantum and crystalline, chaos and order in perfect balance. The combined fleet of human and secondary vessels dropped out of quantum space at the mysterious coordinates, their hybrid drives humming with crystalline resonance. What they found defied all expectations. Before them hung a massive structure, its architecture an impossible blend of organic and geometric forms. It dwarfed their ships, stretching across space like a living constellation. Energy readings are off the charts, Chen reported, her fingers dancing across the crystalline enhanced sensors. The structure appears to be composed of everything. Quantum fields, crystalline matrices, forms of matter we've never encountered. Vextree's form shimmered with intensity as he studied the readings from his position on the Stellar Horizons bridge. It bears similarities to both our technologies, yet it's clearly far more advanced, almost as if it was designed to be recognizable to both our species, Rodriguez finished. This isn't just first contact. This is an invitation. As they approached, the structure responded. Beams of light that somehow managed to be both quantum and crystalline in nature reached out, scanning their vessels. The hybrid shields they'd developed together handled the scan perfectly, exactly as if they'd been designed to do so. Captain, Patel called out, his voice tight with excitement. I'm detecting signatures similar to the quantum anomaly that brought us together, but they're coming from all across the galaxy. This isn't just a meeting point. It's a hub. The structure's central section began to open, revealing a massive docking area that could accommodate both fleets. As they maneuvered inside, they discovered they weren't alone. Other ships were already there, vessels of designs neither species had ever encountered, each displaying different combinations of technological approaches. We're receiving a transmission, Chen announced. It's simultaneously quantum encoded and crystal resonant. The message that played through both ship systems was unlike anything either species had encountered before. It spoke in pure mathematics, in resonances, in quantum fluctuations, yet somehow both humans and secondary could understand it perfectly. You have arrived, the message began. You have proven yourselves ready. The central chamber of the structure illuminated, revealing a vast holographic display of the galaxy. Red points of light began appearing across its surface, thousands of them representing different civilizations. The universe faces a choice, the message continued. Evolution or extinction. The barriers between dimensions are weakening. What comes through will either destroy all life or elevate it to a new stage of existence. The outcome depends on unity, on the ability of different species to combine their strengths. Rodriguez and Vextree exchanged glances. The other ships in the dock represented pairs of species who, like them, had learned to work together, combining different approaches to technology and existence itself. Your combined fleet, the message explained, is not an accident. You were chosen. The quantum anomaly was a test, one that could only be solved through cooperation between a crystalline species and one that had mastered quantum mechanics. You are one of 12 such pairs we have discovered. The holographic display zoomed in on a massive distortion approaching the galaxy, a tear in space-time itself that made the quantum anomaly they'd encountered seem tiny in comparison. "What's coming through that breach?" Dr. Patil whispered. Studying the readings, it exists in 15 dimensions. Our current forms couldn't possibly perceive it, let alone interact with it. Precisely, the message confirmed. But together, your species have already begun to transcend your limitations. The quantum crystalline technology you developed to reach this place is the first step toward what you must become. The structure began to share information, vast databases of scientific knowledge, but also something more. Plans for transformation, for evolution, for combining the best aspects of both species into something entirely new. This is why the Excendary's arrogance had to be challenged, Rodriguez realized, and why humanity's chaotic nature needed the Excendary structure. We're incomplete on our own. To face what comes, the message concluded, you must become more than you are. Not by surrendering your uniqueness, but by combining it with others. The 12 pairs we have gathered will form the seeds of a new form of life, one capable of facing the dimensional breach. The next several hours were spent in intense discussion as both species absorbed the implications. The structure, which they learned was an automated outpost left by beings who had already undergone this transformation, provided them with everything they would need to begin their evolution. It's not just about survival, Vextree observed, his crystalline form resonating with new frequencies. It's about becoming something greater than ourselves. Rodriguez nodded, watching as human and Excendary crews began working with the structure's databases. We thought first contact was about meeting new life. Instead, it was about becoming new life. As the joint fleet began their preparations for the transformation that would save their galaxy, Rodriguez made her final captain's log entry. We came into space looking for other life, prepared for either friendship or conflict. What we found instead was completion. The Excendary's arrogance and humanity's chaos weren't flaws. They were pieces of a puzzle waiting to be assembled. As we begin this transformation, we carry with us not just the hopes of our own species, but the future of all life in the galaxy. The greatest discovery wasn't finding alien life. It was discovering that life itself is meant to be shared, combined, transformed. Together, we become infinite.